Morning all, and welcome to the Caithness Area Committee. First one of January 2025, so a new year, see what that brings. This will be recorded and will be circulated onto the Highland Council website, and it'll be there for about 12 months if anybody's wanting to have a look at it. Have we got any apologies recorded?
We have one apology, Chair, and that's from Councillor Bremner.
Okay, thank you for that. Yep. Move on to declarations of interest.
I haven't received any declarations of interest in advance of the meeting, but I see Councillor Mackay's hand up.
Okay, Willie?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on the supplementary agenda that's come in there, non-financial, of course. I see there's a report on the Caithness Disability Access Panel. It's just an informative report of which I'm a long-standing member of that committee. So I just thought I'd mention that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
So can I just make clear, that's a transparency statement, Councillor Mackay, or a declaration? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, Willie.
Yes, yep. Transparency statement, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Jan?
Likewise, I've been a long-serving member of the Disabled Access Panel as well, so it's a transparency statement from me too.
Okay, thanks for that. I've got a phone going in the background here. Right, I'm delighted to say that we have Gary Pringles here, the station commander, who's going to lead us through the Scottish Fire and Rescue local performance report. So over to you, Gary.
Thanks very much, Chair, and good morning, members. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name's Gary Pringles, Station Commander, based in Thurso, and I'm the District Commander for the Caithness area. I would just like to start, so my thanks for the opportunity to deliver the Q1 and Q2 Scottish Fire and Rescue Service performance reports on behalf of our local local senior officer, Area Commander Michael Humphreys. Just to identify as well, this report covers the 6 months from the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2024. Moving straight on, if I could just bring your attention to section 5 of the new format that we're using now. During the 6-month reporting period, we had a total of 10 incidents in Caithness that were reported as accidental dwelling fires. As the graphs will show, this is shown as currently above the 3-year average. That being said, there was 0 fire fatalities as a result of those incidents, and there was two casualties recorded, which is always concerning. So again, I'll go on to our commitment to reduction just a little bit later on. Within the report, it identifies that there was 12 deliberate fires, and with the 2 of them being deliberate primary fires and the remainder getting made up of deliberate secondary. There were 30 in total non-fire related incidents, and there was also 2 non-domestic deliberate fires recorded during this period. The 6-month period showed 5 road traffic collisions. However, the good side of that was there was 0 fatalities and casualties as a result. So that's always good to see that. Within the period as well, the Caithness area stations, the station personnel, and also our community safety advocates and other non-uniform personnel who are involved in the community safety side deliver a total of 115 home fire safety visits throughout the Caithness district, which is quite a good number considering the layout of the area, which certainly don't need to explain that to yourselves. Most of these home fire safety visits, pretty much made up from post-fire response, so the previous related incidents, the recurrent visits that we've had, we've been at before, and we're back to readdress and do an annual, or sometimes up either 1 year or 3 year re-inspections. And also a lot of the home fire safety visits coming through referrals from our partner agencies. So again, to all our partner agencies and the members who support these initiatives, and it's very much appreciated. Following our introduction of the unwanted fire alarm signal policy, which was in July 2023, within the 6-month period, we're down to 12 unwanted fire alarm signals. This is real good news because of the various aspects that it brings to the commitment to the service, i.e. if we get appliances going out for what turns out to be a false alarm or something that could have been stopped, reduces if we don't turn out to incidents like that, then this reduces the road risk to communities, obviously. But the other big side of it is also it prevents unnecessary mobilisation of our appliances, which involves obviously our local on-call crews and the disturbances that can bring within either their self-employment, their primary employment, or either just ordinary family life as well. So if we can keep driving these down, then we will do so. As previously mentioned, I can assure members that we are absolutely committed 100% to being proactive when it comes to the previously mentioned incidents, and to ensure that our community engagement certainly that will increase as we go year over year. And again, to all our partners and members that help spread that word, then again we're grateful for the support that it brings. Moving on to section 6.1 of the report, again referring to our on-call personnel and staffing. We're always constantly trying to engage the community so that we can bring in additional crew members. Some people refer to the on-call as part-timers, but I think we all really know the value that they bring, and we're constantly making sure that positive message has been put out there. We are very heavily involved in not just the recruitment, but also the retention of the personnel that we have. We've put an awful lot of commitment into the training and making sure that the crews that's turning out in the appliances are as competent as they can be. And the last thing we want to do, circumstances happen that people do need to leave us, but if there's an awful lot that we do in the background that to support our staff. So again, it's just constant revolving and pushing the recruitment process, and that will never stop, and it'll never fail. We will get crews if we can. We have quite a healthy number of people currently in the recruitment process as well at the moment. So the road to becoming an on-call firefighter, a competent firefighter, can take over 3 years once they join the service. So again, it's long-term commitment, and we do know the commitment that we ask of the people within the Caithness area who would like to join us or have already joined us. So again, we're grateful to everybody that helps us turn the appliances out the door. Within the reporting court 6 months as well, our Caithness stations, or community fire stations, facilitated a large number of community events involving numerous members of the community groups, you name it, and we are very active in engaging with as many members of the communities as we can. We've also attended a lot of within that period, a lot of the local events, so the fairs and the fetes and the galas and everything else that we can use to make sure that we're able to get the word out there, ensuring maximum community engagement, and of course using the opportunities where there's large volumes of our communities there to ensure that the safety and prevention word messages are being provided, and using all the various means and options that we have to deliver that message. Within that period as well, yep, they will continue to deliver the fire skills and also the youth volunteer scheme down in the Wick, and also the work going on now, looking at the year going forward. So we're not resting on our laurels, I can assure you, and we're looking to make sure that we can gain as much of these opportunities as we can, just to ensure that we're definitely getting as much engagement as we can with the young people of within the Caithness area. On the 17th of August, we held the station open day at Thurso. It was quite a big event. Councillor Gunn, it was nice to see you on the day, and the other members that were able to support. I would just like to use this opportunity also to extend our gratitude to the members of our partners and other agencies that supported us on the day. And this ranged from Scottish Ambulance Service, Police Scotland, the usual big list, the Coast Guard. We had the Dounreay Power Station representing and showing the public what goes on and what they do and explaining stuff. We had the probably one of the most visited ones that we had was the road safety camera van. And I think the individual had already signed the Official Secrets Act, because there's no way he was telling anybody how that operates. So that's fair enough. But again, it was great to have such a huge big audience, and again we will look to be putting an open day on again this year. As always, we will continually strive to make improvements in all aspects within the report, and we remain fully committed to the safety of both our residents and also the visitors within the Caithness district. Chair, that's my submission to the committee, and quite happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Gary. Just before I open it up to members, I would also like to thank you and your crews for the great work that you do. And certainly the public days are great. It's really good to see all the emergency services coming together, and it's it's good for the public to see that, I think. So well done for that as well. Okay, members, I'll open that up now if any questions or comments on Gary's report. Willie, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Gary. Very good report as usual. Excellent. So, Gary, just a wee question. Yes, I can see on page 8 in your report, bullet point number 5. See, from July 23, you've stopped attending AF calls to commercial and workplace premises unless a fire has been confirmed. So do we take it then, Gary, that all these buildings are hardwired to the fire station? And obviously, what happens in the middle of the night if there's nobody in the factory or whatever to confirm that there is a fire in the building?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mackay, for your question there. Yep, it's one that we hear quite often. Prior to the launch of the unwanted fire alarm signals policy that we introduced in July 2023, service had a huge big dig into the amount of appliance journeys that were made to incidents where it was false alarms. There was a change in legislation as well that effectively put, that's a few years ago, that put the onus on the property owners to ensure they had suitable and sufficient fire safety detection equipment. And again, this is very much dependent upon the individual risk assessment of a particular premise. As it states, when we implemented this policy, we were very careful to ensure that anywhere that had sleeping arrangements or were pretty much had occupants within it that were vulnerable, then what we did was we made sure that they were excluded from this. In terms of your comment regarding the links to the fire station, so many industrial properties have got automatic fire alarm detection systems within. In the detection of an event, normally the risk assessment within a property will require a member of that company attending at that local area just to find out if there is actually a fire. Upon the fire confirmed notification to fire service control, we will mobilise resources appropriate to that building. However, the findings that were found prior to the 2023 launch was that many of these were causing a huge amount of journeys to our appliances, a huge disruption, and as a result, we looked at the environmental impact as well as the problems that it was causing, especially within our, as I can previously mentioned prior to, within our on-call personnel, and the disturbance to themselves, their families, their employers. So yeah, we looked at the reduction and the options and ways in how we could stop these journeys, and also it was also a means of making sure that property owners and property responsible persons were able to take that onus on themselves and take that responsibility. Again, the outcome of how heavily protected a building is purely dependent upon the risk within it. And within my 25 years of service, I've seen risk assessments of full-blown fire alarm system with smoke, heat, infrared detectors, smoke curtains. There's various options that can be built into an automatic fire alarm system. Going right back to the very basics of a bucket of sand. And that's pretty much the fire risk assessment that each property is required to provide, will identify what the building will need in order to ensure fire safety within that building to its occupants and visitors. And it's very specific to individual properties. So apologies for a bit of a long-worded answer to your question there, but hopefully I've ticked all your boxes.
Yes, you have, certainly. Thank you very much, Gary, for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we move on to Matthew now?
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Morning, Gary. Good to see you. Quick ones. First of all, section 5.1, you actually picked up on it in what you said, Gary, but the number, the 115 fire home safety visits, I think that is really exceptionally good, because prevention is definitely better than cure when it comes to house fires. And I'm not really asking for a long sort of explanation about it. I just think it's very good indeed. And the more of these you can do, I think they're absolutely brilliant. And it's very reassuring to see that they're managing to fit so many in a 6-month period. It's really good. Two actual questions. First of all is obviously the attendance, the availability figures for Thurso are pretty good. But I wanted to ask, and I can't remember offhand, I know Betty Hill and Tongue have been struggling, and obviously I know Thurso has to cover instance in that out west if those stations aren't available. So just wanted to ask briefly for comments on that, because clearly if Tender's in Tongue 44 miles away, it's meaning Wick's presumably having to cover Thurso and so on, and so so it goes on. I just wanted to ask about progress with that one. And the third one, it's a big one, but several members of this committee are on the planning committee as well, and we are regularly now considering battery energy storage systems. I just wanted to ask what literally is the very latest up-to-date position regarding yourselves and your understanding for dealing with battery energy incidents. Because our understanding, and Councillor McEwen's on the planning committee and she's here today as well, is that we basically, Scottish Fire and Rescue are basing a lot of their stuff on a paper from Dorset Fire and Rescue. And obviously a battery energy storage system in Dorset is exactly the same as one in Caithness, but it's really just to ask what is the latest information the crews have for dealing with an incident like that, if and when they were called to one. Thank you once more.
Sorry, Councillor, just making sure I wrote down your question. So I'll
Only
try
two
and not
questions.
miss.
Only two questions. Betty Hill and tongue availability and battery energy. That's all, Gary.
Yeah, no, that's cool. In terms of the Betty Hill and tongue, I'll just deal with Betty Hill first.
Yeah.
That is actually looking quite positive at the moment in terms of recruitment. We have got 2 currently within the process, so we're looking to get them hopefully started as soon as possible. They are actually just in the. It can take several months, to be honest, to get somebody started because of the various checks and processes that they have to go through to become a firefighter. However, the other side of that is we're quite often find ourselves waiting on information coming back from the individuals also, purely because of their family life, their primary employment, or their self-employment. So sometimes it's a wee bit frustrating for ourselves if we're wanting and needing people in, but we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. So we're constantly pushing in. And in terms of recruitment, we do have a recruitment managers, one who's just sitting opposite me in his desk and working away as usual, working very hard. And he sets out particular days where he'll chase up and we will push for recruitment and looking to bring people in. So we're looking much stronger in Betty Hill than we have been, certainly if I look a year ago. But again, it's we won't lay down in that, and 2's not enough. So we will constantly and probably be doing a recruitment drive, and we're doing a recruitment drive in Tongue probably by the start of next month, and we'll probably go for Betty Hill as well. Tongue is a wee bit more complicated. I've been heavily involved with the Tongue Community Council regarding that. So the Tongue, Melness and Skerry, the Community Council, and I've attended meetings, and they actually held their last council meeting within the fire station, and to that which we also held a recruitment day for Tongue. It's a tough one. There's no really any easy answer to it because the publicity is there. It's really difficult to get people to commit to the job because of life possibly and their personal circumstances. But again, it's not something. No, we don't sit and say, and there's no way I will ever sit and say, can I get MD? So no, well, not to worry.
Okay.
No, that's just knowing we're built. So I can assure you we will constantly be working throughout the year to try and get the availability of all our appliances and stations within the Caithness and the kind of very North Sutherland areas, so that one, they are self-sufficient, but also two, as you mentioned, if Thurso's needing to head that way, then we've still got Wick to back the kind of Thurso Wick area, but it's a huge big risk to cover ourselves. So, just on that note as well, with Betty Hill, sorry, I'll get on to your best question just shortly, but we also have a pilot period, a pilot project running, and it's joint mobilising.
Yeah.
So that is still ongoing as well, and we've had in the past month and a half, we've had maybe 4 or 5 joint mobilisations between Tongue and Bettyhill. So there is quite a big protocol between actually the two stations meeting and travelling to an incident, and there's obviously timescales and time delays within that also, but we're certainly being proactive, and we're being innovative and trying to find new ways and ways we can plug that gap just temporarily until we can hopefully in the not too distant future get stations in a standalone position. Is that fair enough for day 2? Is that?
Yeah, it is, Gary. I mean, and basically, I suppose, I think you said there's 2 people available at Bettyhill at present, and how many are there at Tongue right now?
Well, Bettyhill's actually got 6 personnel within the station.
Sorry, I misunderstood you. Okay.
Tongue have only got 2, but the 2 are referenced to Bettyhill. They're 2 trainees that we're hoping to get in very soon.
Okay. Good luck. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And Bess, that was the other thing.
And Bess, yeah, such a big topic, and one that we individual station commanders and officers within SFRS throughout the whole of Scotland, we're getting constant emails from companies who are building these and looking for guidance. And then the problem with these is that, as far as we're concerned, the legislation side of it is still very much, in terms of enforcing legislation, the only guidance and direction that we are able to provide any builder of these is referring to the National Fire Chiefs Council. So within that document produced by the NFCC, that pretty much states where we sit and what our requirements are. In terms of the process for dealing with these, yeah, they're a huge environmental issue in terms of the toxicity of the smoke that comes off them should they go into the thermal runaway. In terms of our ability to deal with them, the priority for us is normally when we attend these, there's never really been life risk. So that, as you imagine, is pretty much our first priority. Then the second priority is control and containment. So in terms of preventing the potential for thermal heat to affect surrounding the storage boxes, so that's a huge one for us. So the first thing we tend to do is make sure that we apply a cooling process to those to make sure that they're not going to become involved. And then the other side of it is the smoke coming off of that. So we can create water sprays, and we can do what we can to take that as much of those takes out of the air as possible. Of course, using water as the firefighting media, it's more we're using it this time as a containment media and controlling the effects of this, because it's very, very difficult. A lot of manufacturers have built in safety systems and inert gas systems that can extinguish flames. But again, when a battery goes into thermal runaway, you can put it out and you can still be trying to put it out 3 days later. So, and then of course using the water, the other big environmental consideration we have is that water and where it's going. So if it's entering water courses, again, there's lots of toxics and chemicals and nasty stuff within that. Again, we will contain as much as that as possible, and then we'll be heavily reliant upon our colleagues within SEPA to provide us with further direction on the best way to dispose of that.
That's really, really helpful. The bizarre thing is that actual firefighting is not what we call a material planning consideration. So that's why I'm taking the opportunity to kindly ask you. But equally bizarrely, the water runoff, the pollution and the smoke, those are material planning considerations. So that's why we're always keen to understand a pretty major issue better. So I really appreciate your candor. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
No problem,
Yep.
Councillor. Thanks for your questions.
Thanks. Jan, you've been waiting patiently there.
Yes. Thanks, Gary.
Sorry,
and-
sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, you've answered a lot of questions I was, and it's about the contaminated runoff of the water that I'm concerned with, because a lot of them do have built-in fire prevention things in these storage units. I've been and visited one. Are you well aware that there's about 8 coming pending consideration for Caithness?
I didn't quite know there was 8. I know of
There's
3.
there's 6 in the Thurso side, Ward 2, and 2
Right.
over in Ward 3. There is, so this is all pending consideration at the moment. So it is going to be a big issue up in this area. That's my first comment. What was my second comment? I was going to make. Yeah, regarding the false alarms. I can cover this with personal experience. Some of these automated alarms are so sensitive. Like the wind will set them off for you, or a bird strike will set them off for you. So in my previous life, I did have to go and check, because when we put the new fire safety system in and heat system, it was all singing and all dancing, but it was so sensitive. The fire brigade was getting called out once and twice a week. So I understand why the policy came in that the responsible person had to double check on that, because a bird strike, a heavy wind, even like hailstones, would set the alarm off. It was so sensitive, so it had all to be sorted. The other comment I was going to make, thank you for your open days, because they are very good for use for recruitment and making the public well aware of everything. So you're planning one this year, so will it be over this side of the county this year?
To be confirmed. Yep.
Yeah, sorry for
No, that's fine. No, what we're looking to do is there will definitely be one in Thurso. But
No,
again,
I'm talking about Wick.
Yep. And the other side of that, and that's what I was coming to. I'll need to speak to the Wick crew, just confirm. And what I will do is I'll find out about that, and I'll certainly be pushing them for one. That's for sure, because it's the open days. No, certainly the stations attending the local community events is a great thing, and that's heavily something that we fully support and encourage. But the other side of it is we need our communities to see what the actual fire stations are, what the layout is, where we sit and have a cup of tea after coming back from an incident, maybe have a chat over something, or where we look after our equipment, and actually just to be open and let everybody know what they've got on their doorstep. So every station every year gets encouraged within the district to have an open day. So yeah, if you leave that one with me, Councillor McKeown, we'll come back to you with that one, and we'll try and push that as much as we humanly can.
That'll be great. But otherwise, thank you very much for your report and your ongoing support for all the firefighters. They do an amazing job. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Okay, Jan, I don't see any other hands up. So yeah, Gary, thanks again for a really comprehensive report and answering all the questions. It's very helpful, and I'll be looking forward to your open day again. So all the best. Thanks again.
Not before we have one, Ron.
What I'll do is make sure they're not on the same day.
Yes.
Magic. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again. Right, we'll move on now to item 4, report on play park funding. I just would like to say before John starts that we were certainly welcome this report. We asked for it so we could get an update on the position of the play parks in the county. There was some public debate over this when there was an announcement about a number of play parks to be closed. As you will hear, there are absolutely no plans to close any play parks. There are new equipment to be installed in some of the play parks. So I just want to make it clear, there is no plans to close any play parks. And we'll look forward now to John Mackay's report. So over to you, John.
Morning, Chair and members, and thank you for allowing me to present this paper today. As you say, Councillor Gann, we know it's not even on the radar to close any play parks, but where we are today, I think is a very good news story for Caithness. The total allocation for the Scottish Government Play Parks renewal programme for the Caithness area is £294,179, which was split equally between the two wards of £147,090 per ward over the 5-year period. So for Ward 2, what I'm asking for today is the funding to be approved for Gillock Park, Harland Road in Castletown, Dannet, Scrabstead, and for Ward 3, a full refurbishment of Grizzly Park in Wick. And this is on top of the place-based investment funds members allocated to improve and refurbish play parks throughout the county. These included Bignald, Hillhead, King George V in Wick, Castle Terrace and Beach Road in Thurso, and in addition, the place-based funding facilitated improvements and renovations to play parks right throughout Caithness. If I can digress on the Scottish Government money just for a wee minute, just to sort of clarify where we are. On a play park equipment's got a 15-year life expectancy, and on average, annually in Caithness, 22 items reach the end of their life, necessitating removal. That's absolutely standard. It's normal for play park equipment to come to ends of life and need removed. A good example is the Nold in Wick, where the equipment came to the end of the life, and I remember going round and showing the state of that equipment to members, corrosion, and it wasn't obvious to the naked eye. That equipment was removed, it was replaced without a ripple in the water, and that's how we like to do it. In the past, it's always happened, but because we replaced it immediately, the new equipment, it just went unnoticed. Nobody really noticed what we were doing. But this is just a rolling programme, always has been, always will be. And removing equipment that's the end of its life and is becoming unsafe is an absolute necessity for the safety of children. We have no escape from that. It does come to the end of its life. We have to remove it. And I think I'll offer up a wee bit of praise for the team in Caithness, because they have done an exceptional job of extending the life of the equipment. And I think that's partly why, just a very top view of what happened, it looked bad, because where there's a lot of equipment to be replaced in Caithness, and we're working our way through it now, this happened in other areas quite a few years ago. But because of the skill of the boys up in Caithness, they've actually really pushed the limit. And at 15 years, we're looking at some equipments well in excess of 20 years that we've actually stretched the life of it, but it does come to an end. And just to clarify, we are not going to close any play parks in Caithness. If we are forced to remove equipment until such time as we get, and there is a gap between removing equipment and getting new equipment in, that play park is still open. Kids can go in and play, they can have games, they can have picnics, it's there for them, and we'll be maintaining the grass and everything within that play park. And just to say, Caithness has 49 play areas, and within that we've got 335 pieces of play equipment. That's really all I have, members, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, John, for that report, and it's really good to hear the great work that is going on in this area. It was an area the public don't often hear much about, but it's good. So I'll open up to the members for any comments or questions now, and I'll pass on to Jan.
Thanks, John, for this report. I mean, it's very self-explanatory. It actually puts out that there is no play parks closing, and that it's equipment coming to the end of life of any use, and for safety reasons it has to be removed. So it makes it quite clear that there's no play parks, and I'm absolutely delighted to see that the Grizzly Park is getting its new equipment in shortly, you know, at the spring this year, hopefully, fingers crossed. And also I'd like to pass on my thanks to all your workforce that has extended the life of a lot of the equipment up here and ensure that it's safe for our children to use. And also that any queries I put into yourself or Evan, I get a very quick response back, which really, I'm actually going to say it's quite unusual for Highland Council officers. So I want to show you my appreciation, John, coming back. And if you can't help me, you signpost me to the person that can help me. So thank you for all the assistance you've gave me, and thank you to your workforce. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen.
Okay, Carl, your hand's up.
Thanks, Chair, and
shit.
thanks, John, for your report. I think it's absolutely essential too that we recognise what Scottish Government have done here. You know, it's put it on the agenda today, and you know, if we examine their policy and their desire and what they want to do with play areas, they want to make a generational experience, not only for kids, you know, and I think we need to put some focus on that. My real concern, because this is my second term as a councillor, and I've listened to you very carefully in the past and what you say, and you're quite right about our responsibility has got to be towards ensuring safety for any users. But you know, the message is clear when you give us when you caution that with a 15-year life expectancy. You know, everyone understands that living in Caithness. We live in a pretty harsh environment, and you know, we should expect to see particularly metal structures. You know, when it comes to that 15-year span, we're going to have to think about how we replace them. But I think some of the more encouraging conversation in the past has been around a different type of design, that we can now get a lot of wooden structures, more modern. There's a different, you know, different play areas can be a different challenge. So I think, I would hope our focus from this point onward is to, you know, understand how we may change the design in the future. And I think we've got an opportunity. I'm so glad it's on the agenda today, but I think we've got an opportunity to really engage with communities to understand how we improve the offering across Caithness. Let's make this the first page or the first step of the journey. I think that we should take a real focus in understanding how we can create play areas that, as intended, you know, they're multi-generational. We want to see all ages being able to enjoy these facilities. So just interested on, because I know people will ask in the paper, it says, it's probably a question for yourself, Chair, but in the paper it's, you know, it refers to committee members being involved in the discussions around where Ward 2 is an example, can you give us an idea on a criteria or a thought process? Because people will ask, if you live in Gillick, in Thurso or Castle and Dunnet, Scrabster, you know, you're going to be pleased with, but just so we can get an understanding what criteria was applied, and you know, and indeed how we're going to take this issue forward, I guess, is a question, Chair. But thanks again, John.
Yeah, thanks, Card. I think the simpler answer is we would be speaking to the community councils, really. You know, they would be the ones who would be interested or have the input anyway, because they would get it back from the public. And I think it is important. I've actually circulated the proposed photographs, so the equipment that's going into Gillick Park to different people. So there certainly will be an engagement going on there. Yeah.
Do you mind if I come back just?
Oh, sorry, Escar. Yeah.
Just very briefly, Ron. Can we absolutely get your point about community councils, but you know, I think we should expand it. If we consider what's happened in Caithness over, I don't know, the last decade or so, you know, community groups in particular have done a fantastic job, and we should recognise that too. There's been huge amounts of money raised, but I'm always community councils have a difficulty in, you know, dealing with finances. So I think we should spread the net when we think about how we engage with people. Community development trusts, an example, but let's not exclude anyone. I think I would like to make that point. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. No problem. There's plenty we can add to the list. Anybody will miss in it. Struan, yeah.
Oh, my hand was up.
Oh, so sorry.
It's fell
Okay
back
then.
down. I would just come in here. We have monthly meetings with Carol, with John and his workforce regarding these play parks, and this has been going on for some length of time. So the local councils have monthly discussions with John about where he's replacing things, where he's removing things, what the plans are, what the budgets are. And this goes on monthly, so there's plenty of discussions with the amenities and the community councils regarding the best use of the workforce, etc., etc. So we are in monthly discussions regarding these play parks, especially when there was the big outcry about play parks closing. John was the first to jump in and actually tell the local councillors what was happening, so we could alleviate a lot of fears and frustrations with our communities. I just want to put that point over. Thank you.
Okay,
Could I-
Jan, thanks.
Ron, I
Stuart,
just want to,
oh,
just to come back on that point, I mean, I'm well aware of that, Jan. Those informal discussions were established the last term. We've been having them since then. But my point is, here we are, we've got a point in the agenda at Caithness Area Committee where Scottish Government's providing funding. I think the challenge for us is how we're going to tackle the remaining issues. John highlights them. Every time I speak to John, he highlights the point that there is a life expectancy on this. But, you know, if the fact remains that this is Scottish Government money, we need to find a way of freeing up revenue and capital so we can invest in play parks. That's the very point I make.
yeah, good point, Carl. Thanks. Struan?
Thanks, Chair. And really kind of my point was really to echo what Carl has said there. That, you know, the paper that's in front of us today is obviously looking at Scottish Government funding, which, you know, is incredibly welcome and incredibly appreciative. Like Jan, you know, John and your team for, you know, your communication with the members is really valuable, so that, you know, one, we understand the funding landscape, which you've always been very clear about, but also trying to get our best bang for buck, you know, quite frankly. And I think that's demonstrated in the paper that you can see today. You know, it'd be remiss for us not to say that I think that the report that went to the Highland Council about a couple of months ago now, you know, what wasn't helpful in some of the discussions around about the play parks, because I think it did set hairs running. You know, it wasn't malicious. It was effectively a column title that could have been worded differently, and unfortunately we got into a position where an awful lot of people across the community were very worried about the future of the play parks. I'm conscious that we do have the kind of play park coordinator side of that, and I think my question, John's around about how we can get that joined up as best as we possibly can, because I, like Carl, really don't want to be reliant on, you know, money coming from the devolved administration in the Scottish Government to kind of, you know, quite frankly, you know, make some of the big investments that are going to need to be done, and then we're just hoping that something else comes along in 4 or 5 years' time. You're completely correct in saying that your service has always had a rolling approach to this, and as play park material or assets reach the end of their useful life, the idea would be that dovetails very neatly into either replacement or indeed finding more suitable assets, as we've talked about before, by this kind of idea of kind of an intergenerational place for people to have in the community. So I suppose my question is really around about that, where that coordinator piece is going to sit, and is it worth having kind of a little bit of a line of sight discussion with some of our communities around about the lifespan of their parks, and beginning that conversation 5 years before it's an issue, as opposed to in the months leading up to it, because I think that being proactive as best as we possibly can would be a good place to start. So thank you very much, Chair. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Struan. Willie?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, good, John. Good to see you again. Yeah, absolutely delighted with your news as a regular member of your monthly meetings. This is wonderful news, absolutely wonderful. But John, excuse me, I'm very proud of the play parks in Caithness, quite honestly. I travel to 10 parishes every other week. And John, I'm thinking you'll agree with me. We've got some wonderful, expensive play parks in this county, all due to community benefit. Now, not only community benefit, but voluntary groups, community groups who go out of their way to attract fundraising, much fundraising, so in order to buy an expensive play park. And that's absolutely fantastic to see, because as a result of that, we have overall in this county some very good play parks indeed. and match what you've got to do, I think the children should be very proud, like I am, of the facilities that we have in this county. They are absolutely fantastic. I know they're expensive, the lifespan is quite short relatively, but however, overall, I'm pretty sure Johnny will agree with me, Caithness is very well documented for having such good, very good play parks.
Okay, Wally, thanks very much. Jan, you want to come in very quickly
Yeah,
there?
yeah, I just want to come in as well and say, I agree with Willie. I mean, and a lot of our local little communities, little hamlets have actually asset transferred the play parks over to them, and they are looking after them as well. And then there's a big fundraising out for new play parks at John O'Groats, etc., etc. The local communities are taking a vast interest in their play parks in this county, and they should be. And there is wind farm community benefits that's paid into these swing parks as well, and we should be really proud of what we're doing up here for our children, and giving them. And I know there's probably it's ongoing. There's always better and bigger and more sustainable equipment on the go, but as we're moving on, that it will be replaced with these better equipment and more sustainable equipment. But I think we should be proud in Caithness of what we've gone and what the team worked with, and also what our communities are doing to sustain their play parks. That's all. I'm just wanting to put that
Okay,
out.
yeah,
Thank
you. Sorry, fine, Jan. Thanks very much for that. There's no more hands up there. Yeah, the play parks are really important, as you say, and there is some debate needed on the funding right enough. There are different streams of funding, so it's certainly something we'll have to keep an eye on with regard to that. We might be asking for an update at another meeting. Sorry, an update, another meeting, John, sometime this year, in the future. So members, we've been invited to agree the funds allocated to Ward 2 and Ward 3. Are you quite happy to agree and approve this and the work on the play parks?
Yes, of course we'd all like more, but I mean, yeah.
I'm just asking you, are you happy to agree the fund?
Agreed, Chair.
Agreed. Chair.
Yes, lovely. Thanks, members, for that. John, thanks again for that vital report. Really, it was really great to get an update for not only us but the public as well. So thanks again, John.
Okay, thank you, members and chair.
No bother. Right, move on now to item 5, the Roads Capital Programme update from, I think Josie's here somewhere. Yes, there she is. Over to you, Josie.
Morning, everybody. So first, the first of 2 reports I've brought to the committee this morning. This one is an update on last year's approved priorities list. At the time of presenting to yourself, which was back in January, we didn't know what the budgets were. The budgets were set in March, and we were on the receiving end of quite a significant investment into Caithness, over £3 million. So I'll go straight on to the Appendix 1, which was the list that was approved, and the priorities that were on it were as of January 2024. As we know, we had winter conditions changed, roads didn't stand up as well as we'd hoped, and others did. So the updated list also includes additional sections of road that came along through the year, and as previously mentioned at committee, the monthly meetings with members, these lists and schemes are discussed and put forward there. So this is a rationalisation or just an overall approval at committee of all those works that we did, the changes that went on, the additions that were put into the list. So you've got in front of you the outstanding works that we are looking to do between now and the end of the financial year, and then all the works we managed to complete throughout the year, the majority of which were done by our in-house roads teams. We did get some contractors to come out. It's generally 3/4 we deliver in-house. It's just the resources we have, the time, the holidays, leave, winter. We do. So we try and maximise as much as we can, and the anticipation is we'll get through these last 12 schemes before rolling on to next year's scheduled works. As you can see, there's a fair old mix of rural and urban streets in there. So that's where we are just now. On this one, it's just an update for what's gone on throughout the year for members.
Okay, Josie, thanks very much. Is any members wanting to make any comment or questions for Josie? Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Morning, Josie. Good to see you, even though it's only on a screen. I've got a few questions. The first one is a general one. Looking at the spreadsheet, in general terms, it looks like the costs per square metre haven't changed that much compared to 2 years, well, compared to last year, whether it's for inlay, surface dressing, etc. But I'm not quite sure, compared to maybe 2 to 3 years ago, roughly what's the percentage increase in costs of materials? And basically, you've got the figure per square metre. Just looking for a general opinion on how much or how not much the costs of everything have gone up per square metre. Secondly, a general one, and I know this cropped up at an informal meeting last week, and I haven't had time to check with you. You said there, and I'm particularly thinking here about one of the biggest items on the list, which is the road from Westerdale to Lochmore, and I can never remember the right phraseology. It's the Scottish Timber something fund. I know it's received a big cut in the amount of it, but I wanted to ask about that because it always struck me for that particular project in Caithness. It's a really obvious one for hopefully getting some of that funding. And good news item, looking down the list, number 112, I might be wrong on this, but it's Primrose Avenue, the junction there, which is down for a spend. Sorry, I didn't write down the spend of it, but I'm pretty much certain, because I was there 2 days ago, that one's been done, but it's showing as needing to be done. So that's a small bit of good news, I think. And the final question I had was a very generic one as well. Loosely speaking, last year we had about 405 projects on the list, and in very general terms, we're going to end up doing something between 40 to 50 of those, i.e., in terms of numbers, at least about 10%. Is that roughly, in most general terms, a good approximation? The reason I ask is, in particular, item 414 is Senkler Street in Holkirk, which is down for a big spend of 114,000. And if it remained at number 414, that would suggest at the current rate of progress, it would be many years before we actually got to it. I'm aware there are some projects that are just a very small amount of money, and other ones that are very large sums. But I just wonder if that sort of approximation is, roughly speaking, correct. We're getting about 10% of the list done per annum in the most general sense of the word. And sorry, I did have one more, just wrote it down here. Item number 118 is the Toffs of Tyne Road, which has got the jet patcher down for it. And that just reminded me, it's £15,000. That's one of the ones that has been done. I was just interested to get your opinion on is that the only one the jet patcher has been predominantly used for? Because I don't think that's the case, but it's specifically mentioned in the comments that road was repaired using the jet patcher. That's my list. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. Josie, do you want to take that?
Yeah, the cost per square metre. So it went up a couple of years ago. It was the knock-on from the war in Ukraine. So we put our prices up then. They haven't really come down from that because staffing costs have gone up. So the price of material we didn't change. However, May, June time last year, we did up the prices for inlay because it's an item that we hire in, and the costs have risen on that one. So the inlay costs have gone up to reflect what we're being charged by the contractor that we engaged to do that. So there has been variations, but we're mindful of the three elements that go to form that square meterage, which is the plant, labour and material. So whereas one may have stabilised, one's gone up, so we haven't really moved them about, but they still are, say, generous, which gives us a little bit leeway on
Okay.
length and width. So when we do come to do the scheme, we're not fixed by the figures on,
Yeah.
and that's why it says an estimate in on the paper. Strategic Timber Transport Funding, STTF, is what you're looking for, and they also have the STTS, which is the Strategic Timber Transport Schemes. As you say, it's a government-funded thing. The timber industry have put forward a pot of money that every council in Scotland can bid into, private contractors as well. They have to meet certain criteria for each individual schemes. There's got to be more than just a benefit to a business. Council always have set aside money to match fund to maximise that, and we've been really good. But as you're aware, we were briefed that the Scottish Government are reducing this funding by about 2/3, and at the moment we haven't heard what the successful bids are for Highland for 25-26. That's managed centrally. We have a timber transport coordinator that's sort of is a liaison between us and represents Highland Council, I think, at the Highland Timber Transport Group. So as to the criteria and what meets it, it's very strict and it's governed by them. It's not something I get involved in. What we do is we work with them and highlight roads where we've identified matters in that respect. They've got their own website, which gives a lot of what the group do by coordination. It's maybe worth checking out there, and I can send on some details for sharing. But it also lists all the agreed routes, consultation routes. There's a huge body of work that goes on with the timber industry because it recognises the size of the industry, but the vulnerability of where some of the roads, where some of the forests are, and the extraction goes on. So in terms of Westerdale specifically, I would refer that to the Timber Transport Coordination within the council, and I can get you a contact.
Thank you.
Yeah. Primrose Avenue, item 12. You say it's done. What was presented to members here is last year's priorities for the capital budget. We also do revenue patching, which the guys will do, and I would have to go and check, but I suspect maybe some works have been done under the revenue patching. So whilst it's been done and maybe some minor works, it's maybe something that we need to review before we can say that actually it's been completed in its entirety as we would look at.
Okay.
So on that one.
It looked pretty good, that's all I would say.
Yeah, so it might have been that it got to the point where it was so far down on the capital list, but the revenue budget and the guys were out doing some hot tar patching under there, and they've done it that way. Spend percentage. I would have to go back and do an analysis and a comparison because the number of schemes is not something I look at. I would look at the percentage of road mileage we actually manage to surface, because you could have 50 very short schemes or you could have one very big one.
Huge one.
So without, not off the top of my head, but in order to have an understanding of how far we get, you would look at maybe the tonnage, you would maybe look at the mileage of road, bearing in mind there's single track and double track, so it becomes quite a big. I'm always minded that pre-COVID, our budget was just about 500,000. Yeah. So we've got quite a generous budget that we are managing to spend in Caithness and have been doing so since we came out of COVID, which is a huge positive. Now, I did miss a little bit about what you said about item 118. Could you remind me of your question?
I think it's 112. That was the Primrose Avenue one. So I think you've covered it. I don't think I said.
All right.
I might, yeah, it was maybe I couldn't read my own writing. I haven't got a 118 on my list. It was 112, which was Primrose Avenue that
All right.
you've dealt with. One less.
Right, that sounds good.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Nosy. Carl?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of the current administration, as everyone knows, but I think it's right that we recognise what's been achieved here. Because yet again, for the next financial year, we understand what's been allocated. We're being asked to agree that. So here's £3 million, and I think it's important to put it in context. We all understand the journey we've gone in regard to roads in Caithness. That's been a difficult one. I think part of the difficulty we had in Caithness is that we perhaps didn't recognise that it was a national issue, but our issues were exacerbated because, funding had not been allocated in the past, and these it's important to recognise that this is about political choices. So that's why I want to give this administration some credit, because not only where they figure spent last year £3 and a bit million and additional monies then, but I think the important thing to recognise too is the work that's gone before and improving what machinery and equipment our teams have at their disposal now, because that's been an important part of investment over recent years. So I think we're in a pretty good position now. When you see the work that our teams carry out, I mean, it seems to me to be a very high standard. Our only difficulty now is what levels of investment we can make, and again, that goes back to political choices, but I think it's important that people understand that, because we still have financial restrictions in Scotland, so that's a choices we need to understand, but very important. And I think that figure, I think I'm right in saying if three administrations ago we were in a situation where this figure of £3 million was the entire spend for a Highland area, and now we're spending it in Caithness. So I think it's important to make that point. The positive things that happen. A lot of work to do. I absolutely get that, but now we need to focus on getting more monies into these departments so that they can improve the service that we've got. But thank you, Josie, for your report.
Chair, I've just
yes.
remembered Councillor Reese's other query. It was about the jet patcher.
Oh yes, I want to take that. Yeah.
Yes. We did bring the jet patcher in, and we put it down some roads that we're doing, and we identified some on the revenue budget and some on the capital budget. So that's where that one came in. And I can't remember what your actual question was, Councillor Rees, but I know it was about the jet patcher.
It was to clarify simply, was that basically the road it was largely used on, and kind of it was £15,000. I've actually found you were quite right. 118 was a number and I missed it on my list. I was asking specifically, the cost of that repair was 15 grand, and it's next to it in the comments it said jet patcher, so I was just wondering, was that a specific project for the jet patcher, or just where did it come into it?
No, so 118 was down for surface dressing, but because we weren't doing any surface dressing, we put the jet patcher to it. So the costs, that actual project on that sheet hasn't been updated to reflect that, but it was done to sort of hold the road, if you like, before we could get to it. But the capital element of it, so it was a note to ourselves. We had carried out some repairs to it with the jet patcher.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Jan.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph, for this and all the work that your workmen are doing. And we are starting to see the benefits in the county of all the hard work that you are doing, although there is still an awful lot to go. And as Carol says, £500,000 to 3 million, over 3 million is a huge investment, and of course we do need more. My question is, when you were working with £500,000 and now you're working with over 3 million, has your workforce increased to carry out all this work and to get through it?
No,
No.
we still have the same establishment. Roads are resourced based on the winter maintenance policy. We're not resourced based on capital budget. So our fixed establishment remains the same. However, we supplement our revenue budget with the capital works. So the guys, if they do more capital works, it alleviates the pressure on the revenue budget. We do have the option to take in agency staff to supplement our workforce, and we can, other areas just put all the work out to contractors, but we'll try and keep it in-house as much as possible. I don't think we'd get as much work done. But the bottom answer is no, we haven't been able to increase our workforce because our revenue budget hasn't changed, and that's what essentially funds the revenue budget.
Okay, right, okay. Thanks for that, Josie. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see even more improvements in the roads. Thank you.
Okay, members, anybody else? No more hands up. Yeah, roads is a really important item, and it's probably one of the ones that the public are really concerned about, and quite right in appreciating the fact that we have got over £3 million spend, which I believe is quite a lot compared to what we've had in the past. I wasn't involved in the previous administrations or anything, but yeah, at least we have some money to do some of the work, and the Appendix 1 is a huge list, and it's one of these ones that keep moving. It keeps it's quite a difficult one to follow sometimes because they're priorities, but they are changing. I know this particular one, there's quite a few Thurso area being done, and I think, as it was explained, part of that is because one of the local contractors is working in the area anyway, so they're making use of the contractor. Yeah, so it is vital work that's going on, and we are making a bit of a difference on it, or your teams are making a difference on it. That's good. So we have to note a few things. The final budget allocation for Caithness 24-25. Note the works completed on the approved prioritised list, and note the additional works identified and prioritised throughout the year. But importantly, we have to approve the works still proposed for the 24-25 financial year. So are you happy to approve that, members?
Yeah.
If nobody's saying, excellent. Thanks very much for that. We can move on now to another report from Josie. Yes. Yeah. On you go.
Thanks, Chair. So that's the report that was. This is the report that's coming for this next financial year. And what I would first apologise, it would appear that Appendix 1 was not attached to the report. I've circulated it by email to all members, so hopefully you should have it now. I'll come back onto that. So I'll touch on budget first. So because the budget was set last March for a 3-year rolling programme, we know where we are this year. We know what money we've got, and we've been told to work with the same figure as last year. So again, over £3 million, which is very welcome. We will look to be delivering that as much in-house as possible, but as we alluded to before, our workforce do need their holidays and they do need their breaks, and they still are doing winter work. So we work with local contractors to facilitate that, to ensure we spend our money. So the missing Appendix 1 was pulled together in December, January. And as we all know, we've had a week of snow, we've had some real heavy rain, some couple of yellow weather warnings for rain, and the roads will have changed. And whilst I'm asking members to approve this prioritised list just now, I fully expect that come our next monthly meeting, that might change and we would review the priorities. But also, as the weather, we come out of winter, the staff are travelling around reassessing all the roads, so I expect some additions to come onto this as well as we get into the spring. So going into the summer, it might be a different review. I would also like to highlight to members that over the last few years we have been focusing on inlays and overlays, basically putting black tar down. For this time next year, we would be looking at bringing a list to yourselves with surface dressing on. So just a heads up there of what we're proposing. So whilst we're still looking at the worst of the roads and looking at overlays, doing that structural repairs for this year. So it's still a lot of black material going down on the roads this year. We followed on from the list that we had last year. We've reprioritised and brought some to the top. And the beauty of having a budget approved before the start of the financial year is we can start programming and we can start planning, so we get out of the blocks really sharp on this one. So really it's just a continuation of the work we started last year and the year before, and a constant review of our roads in Caithness, trying to deliver where's needed. And what I would like to say, very much appreciate with the working with members on the monthly basis to go over these issues and concerns and try and address them, and reprioritize. That flexibility is much appreciated, and also the fact that you guys understand the dynamic situation with the Caithness roads and how quick they can change. So other than that, any questions?
Yeah, I can open it up now to Carl.
Thanks, Rob. John, just a specific question. I know you mentioned inlays and then surface dressing. I'd imagine that anyone's, for the benefit of someone who's going to watch us later on, just a brief description on the difference and why we do surface dressing. I know my members are well versed, but it's maybe useful because there's such an interesting topic, Thank you.
Yeah, so overlay is where we generally don't have curb lines. So out in the rural environments, we can just go out and lay another layer of tar on the road network. Inlay is generally where you've got curb lines and you have to plane out a layer of material before you can put something back. Otherwise, you would end up with your road surface being higher than your curbs, and your drainage would go all to pot. So that's the two main structural ones. We do have edge strengthening on there, which is where we sort of do a half a metre wide or maybe up to a metre wide strip along the edge. You generally see that where one side of a road's been used, or single track where there's been a lot of overruns. So we have edge strengthening in that mix as well. Surface dressing is, I don't think it's everybody's favourite, but it's where we spray a bitumen emulsion down and then we put some chips over. That will eventually seal the road. It gives it a bit more skid resistance. It does give us it extends the life of the road for a vastly reduced cost per square metre. I think if you look on the spreadsheet, it's about £7 a square metre as opposed to £20 and £30 a square metre. I liken it to, and forgive me members, you'll have heard this before, the inlay overlay is like replacing your windows. The surface dressing is like painting them. It might not stop you from ever having to replace them, but it will extend the life of them. And this is what the surface dressing does. It is acknowledged within the industry as a structural improvement to the road because it can extend the life of the road if you catch it. There are certain points where a road has just gone too far, and you'll see in the programs we've said it's going to be surface dressed, and then actually we haven't got to it in time, and it's had to change to an inlay or an overlay on there. But yeah, that's essentially it in a nutshell.
Yes, thanks. That's been very helpful, Josie. Yeah, thanks very much. Any other members? Any points or questions? No. Okay, members, we need to. I'm asking you to approve the proposed prioritised area roads capital programme for the Caithness area. Are you happy to approve that?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd just like to also repeat the importance of our monthly meetings with yourselves, Josie. It is really good. It is a very much a changing situation with seasons and every blooming thing, but it's good to get an update regularly from yourself and Jonathan. So, yeah, I think we're the only area that actually has these monthly meetings. So, yeah, it's well worth it. Yeah. So thanks for that. Okay. I think that's it, Josie. You can.
Thank you.
Feel free to go. Right, thanks. Okay, members, we move on now to item 7, the housing revenue account, and we have, who have we got? Ewan and Colin. I think, is it Ewan that's...
Yeah, it'll be
doing
myself,
this?
Chair. Yes, yes.
Okay, right. I'll hand over to yourself now.
Sorry, Chair, was it the garage report first for members? Or is it the performance?
Yes.
It's a garage rent. Sorry, yeah. Garage rent is the first one.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you. So thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Good to see you and meet some of you for the first time. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Housing Garage report. So today, the committee is invited to agree a level of rent increase, obviously to apply to Caithness garages and garage sites. 5.1 of the report, it demonstrates the current position within the table laid out for members there. 5.2, it confirms our current occupancy level and therefore the budgeted rent payable to Highland Council. 5.3, it itemises rental costs for both garages and sites. And 5.4, for members' information, it confirms that the average garage rent Highland-wide is £10.93 per week and the garage site rent is £1.95 per week. Moving to point 6, there has been a tenant consultation for the general rent increase for the housing stock for 25-26. And the three options that were presented for that is 8%, 9% and 10% rent increases. As you can see, the largest proportion of tenants, they've supported an 8% rise. And later on this month, the 29th of January 25, Housing and Property Committee will make that decision on the rental increase. But regarding the garages then, we've laid out tables to clearly model the 8, 9 or 10% garage and garage site increase for your consideration. And it's obviously up to members to decide where you go with this. I would like to point out finally that I am aware of a typo at the end of 6.3, which should be 2025/26. So I'll hand back to you now, Chair.
Thanks for that report. It certainly lays it all out there. I'm just wondering if any members have any comments or questions on the report. No, not seeing any hands up. Yeah. So we have to decide on agree a level of rent increase. Any thoughts on what percentage you feel would be appropriate? Or nope, nothing there. So are we just going to? I suggest that 8%. Is there anything? Nope. So are you members all in agreement with a 8% rise? Not seeing much reactions, members. Yeah, I'm seeing a couple of nods. So we'll yeah, well, thanks for that. So we'll go with 8%. Just one slight question. I was what's the difference between the garage site and the actual garages? I wasn't quite sure.
Sure. Yeah. So the garages is where the Highland Council have provided a garage provision, an actual structure, whereas the garage site is we lease the land and then tenants could provide their own garage structure. Yeah.
I've got you now. Yeah, that's fine. But you would own the land on the sites.
Yeah,
so
Highland Council owns the land. Yes,
the
Chair.
tenant would actually own the garage that was on it. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's cleared that up.
Sure.
Okay, members. We can now move on to item 8, the housing repairs performance report. And is it yourself or is it Colin that'll be?
No, it's myself again.
Oh,
Chair.
good man. All right, you are.
That's fine. Thank you, Chair. So members are asked to note the housing performance from April 1st to the 30th of September 2024. Section 5 of the report, it itemises our emergency repairs performance. Now, this is the average length of time taken to complete an emergency repair, and this is measured in hours. So table 1 confirms that the Highlands Council's target is 12 hours to achieve an emergency repair, and the Scottish Housing Network is 4 hours. So just for clarity, this is the time measurement of repairs to make safe an issue. It might not be to fully complete a repair or replace something, it's to keep the property, the tenants, and any members of the public safe. So I'm pleased to draw members' attention to the strong performance in Q2 there. You can see we have an average of 2.2 hours and 2.9 hours, both well within the target. And you'll note it's well within the Highland average as well. So moving on to table 2, this is non-emergency repairs. This activity is measured in working days, so slightly different measurement tool there. So performance within the 2 wards are again strong at 6.5 and 6.2 days respectively, again within the council's target and within the Highland average. So the teams are working well there. Moving on to table 3, which is void management. So for clarity, void management is the measure of days for the whole relet process of a void. It's measurement from receiving the keys from an outgoing tenant, then carrying out the void inspection, and then our repairs team putting the property back up to council standard, and also for our housing management colleagues to do walkarounds and sign up for a new tenant. So it's the whole process, members. So the table confirms it's 38.4 days and 30.8 days. Now, whilst these are improved figures on last quarter, we are slightly above the 35 days in Thurso and the Northwest. We are aware, though, that Caithness relet times, we are being affected by some hard-to-let properties that can obviously increase the average overall time period. Moving on to table 4, which is capital programme investment. We're currently within a 5-year programme for capital investment, which allows for some acceleration or underspend during that 5 years. You will note that some investment activities have a low spend due to projects such as roofing and insulation, rewires and heating at a pre-construction phase. Now, these are being delivered by our colleagues out with building maintenance, but I just want to offer some assurances that these will take place in due course, and you'll note the spend increase in those lines. Due to our findings at some properties, our expenditure is an acceleration, especially for kitchens and bathrooms and some of the one-off heating upgrades. But we're undertaking these on a failure basis, where they're deemed to be beyond economical repair. We ultimately have no choice but to upgrade these to make the house reach council standards and expectations. The environmental improvements, members, as I'm new to the area, I've caught up that there has been walkabouts with members and the leader earlier this financial year, which means we have a list of projects to take forward. I'm waiting for some confirmation on those so we can pursue these projects. Obviously, as the weather improves, that's more amenable for external works for an environmental improvement. So I'm happy to take any questions now, Chair.
Okay, so thanks very much for the report. Yeah, there's good statistics there, so well done to the teams. Yeah, it's good. Can I open it up to members if any comments or questions? No, nothing there. So
Yeah.
oh, sorry, Jan, I missed you. Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm going back to kitchens and bathrooms, and in particular bathrooms. A lot of the little sheltered housing, the 1-bedroom sheltered housing, I know people are living longer, and as they live longer, their needs and requirements change, and a lot of these little tiny bathrooms are not fit for purpose for wheelchairs, etc. Is there any sort of rolling programme to sort of change these, especially little sheltered housing, into wet rooms that would be more fit, you know, but probably the tenant that's in it, and probably the tenants that's coming later on when they become available again. I actually honestly believe they need to have a look at these little toilets, little bathrooms now in the shelter accommodation to make them more fit for from when the tenant goes in for the rest of their life, which would also help them maybe remain in these houses longer, because it also helps the care workers if they eventually have to go in, etc., etc. Is there any rolling programming going to be coming along to update these little sheltered houses to make them fit now?
Thanks, John.
Good question, Councillor McEwen. Thank you for that. The good news is, yes, we do have a process in place to support our tenants, especially those with medical needs in sheltered accommodation or as they mature. If I could draw your attention to table 4 again, it's called the Equipment and Adaptations Budget. Now, it's quite a healthy budget of £134,000 and our current spend is 36. Now, this is the budget that we use, Councillor, in line with housing management colleagues, the Principal Housing Officer, Margaret Ross, and our occupational therapist colleagues. So they assess our tenants on an individual basis when there's a need, and then they agree any aids and adaptations, whether it's, as you rightly say, a wet room, a shower room, or if there's an adaptation for a toilet, a close-a-mat toilet that helps the cleanliness for the user. And also maybe widening doorways, putting ramps in, handrails, seats like that. So it's a very good point, and I can offer some assurance that we do have a process in place. It's on a case-by-case basis, though, Councillor, not a wholesale expenditure across properties such as sheltered housing.
Yeah, can I come back in here? I can understand that, and I can see, I mean, the current spend is 36,500, and you've got 134,000 a budget in that. Don't you think maybe a wee bit forward planning and doing adaptations? Because I know I have a constituent who waited over 8 months for an OT to go and check his house. You know, so there needs to be a wee bit smarter working here. And I have had quite a lot of contact in particular about bathrooms, and their care support workers support all, etc. And it's getting OTs and things in into working for adaptations like heating, etc. You know, so it's just yeah, we're going to be going into a new financial year, you know, and there's very near 100,000 underspend there. And when I actually contact, I get told that, you know, we're in financial crisis with the maintenance, etc. So the table tells me otherwise.
I'm happy to answer if you wish, Chair.
Yes, on you go.
Yeah, thank you again, Councillor McEwen. I'm happy to have a conversation with the Principal Housing Officer and see if we need to target some maintenance officer time to do some methodical inspections of the provision. I'm of the understanding that capital expenditure will roll over. So if we don't spend that full amount this financial year, we can use that, as you say, if there's bigger projects such as a medical heating exchange, etc., that we can use that money when it's supported, as I say, for a particular tenant's need. But I'm happy to take forward a discussion with the Principal Housing Officer to take on board your concerns.
Yeah, because the ripple effect also is that people remaining in hospital because they haven't got these adaptations and they're bed blocking. You know, so, you know, there's the ripple effect and all this. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Jan. Just before we finish off with yourself, I understand there's quite a big project coming off with a change in the heating system regarding the phone line changing its the operation of the heating. Certainly up in High Ormley, there's a number of places need a change up there. Would that be your team doing that, or would you be bringing in contractors for that? 'Cause it's quite a large project.
It depends, Chair. Sorry. Colin and I work closely with the Housing Investment Officer, Graham Ralph. So what Graham's role is, if it's a larger project such as that, that's typically something that we would liaise with Graham on, because our local team, we deal with more on a one-off basis when something's failed and then we have to replace. I imagine that's something that a housing investment officer will know, but I will liaise with him and I can update you, Chair.
Lovely. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, because I think it's quite imminent actually, the change. Yeah. Okay, members, no other hands up there, so we're being asked to note this report. So quite happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, noted.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much again for the report, and we'll catch up with you again, I'm sure.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Item 9 now, the Education Association School Group Report from Annika Jansen. And just before I bring you in, I would like, to behalf of the Caithness Committee, like to congratulate Miller Academy School, as they were one of the top scoring Highland primary schools, obtaining a top score of 40 for primary 1, 4 and 7. So well done to the head teacher and the pupils and staff on that. So I'll hand over to you now, Annika.
Hello and good morning. So I got 2 papers to bring today, and I think before we starting, it's worth noting we're here to look at the primary data, and because we haven't got all the secondary data from Scottish Government yet, so when we have that, which should be soon, we will come back and maybe talk a wee bit more about that. Okay, so as previous reports as well, as you know, when I come along with these reports, it provides an update of key information in relation to the schools when the Wick. So I'm going to start with the Wick paper first, across the associated school group. So that's including all the schools in the associate school group. And it also gives you an overview of the attainment for the primary schools. And you can see the links within the report to further information too. Please note that the information shared is from previous session 23-24 unless otherwise stated so. And as I said, I will come back with the secondary data later in the year when we got all the data accessible. As you can see from the report, we have 826 pupils in the primary sector. And with ELC and Wick, so 170 children, some of them in our schools and some of them private sector too. And our school secondary data is we have currently 737 young people in the Wick catchment area. So the recommendations today for you is to note the content of the report in regard to primary schools attainment, as I said. And as you can see from the report, there's a lot of information within. And as per usual, I will ask if any very specific questions to specific schools. I will ask us maybe to take the report in the area business meeting, and I can also invite the head teachers so they can kind of provide more information for you as required. Within the report, you can also see how the schools rate themselves on the Standard Quality Report in June 24. And also, as you can see as well, from the schools we have in the catchment areas, 5 of them have been inspected within the 5 last years, with the most recent one is a Wick High School within the catchment area. The attainment overview, it's actually not Wick, it's actually Leipzig, sorry, I'm going to change my mind there. The attainment overview for primary schools, that shows that some schools with the ESG, they perform in line with the average in most areas to Highland average, but also some schools that perform below. So it's a bit of a mixed bag here. However, the trend within this ESG shows an overall improvement picture from previous years. And what I want you to note as well, as usual, that the smaller schools, we have not shared the exact data here due to confidentiality of individuals because the schools are so small so they can be identified. And you can see the appendix as well, our projected school rules for your information. I don't know, Chair, if you want me to go to the next report as well and then take questions, or do you want to take any potential questions right now?
We can take questions just now if that's okay, if there's any comments or questions, if any members have anything. No, we can move on now. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Then I'm moving on to the Thurso ESG group and look at theirs. And again, it's provide you with information on the primary data. And again, I will come back later in the year with the secondary, where we'll have the updated information. In the Thurso ESG, we have 122 pupils in primary and we have ELC settings. They have 144 children, and 123 of them are in local authority settings, and then we have partner settings supporting with other with wider support as well. What's new in Thurso ESG, maybe not in the report, but I want to highlight, is also more provision, expanded provision for 2-year-olds as well, which I think have gone down well with the area. Again, within the report, a lot of information within, and again, I will come back to area business meetings if you want to have more specific questions answered from the head teachers. And here you can see we have one school that was recently inspected, and that was Castletown, who had a very positive report. If you want to go in and have a look before, if you maybe have looked at it already, but all after, it came out all good. So we were actually really pleased for the school for that. Again, the attainment overview is a bit of a mixed bag here. It shows an overall improving picture. And some schools, they do perform in line or above the Highland average. As the chair already mentioned, we had Miller Academy, who had an outstanding year. But also, as you can see, some schools perform below the average. We work very closely with the schools, continued support with officers going in with target support, analysing the data. And we have to remember, this is from last sessions. We have already a really set action plans with the schools, how they're going to improve and how we can support with that in a wider sense. And again, happy to take any questions from members. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Annika. Has any comments or questions from any members? Carl, on you go.
Thanks, Chair, and morning, Annika. It's good to see you again. So I'm just trying to find the sheet that I had. Yeah, so just interested in 7.6 in the Thurso AST report. You know, it speaks about lever destinations in 16 plus, and you know, the information is clear that there's been a significant improvement. I just wonder what we should read into that. You know, it gives starts with years 2020, 21. You know, is it
so it's
COVID or? Sorry, on you go.
No, I'm just going to explain as well. So to me, the data we have there, I reported on the data in a previous area committee. And as I said, we haven't got the most updated from last session. So obviously that's now almost, to me, also a bit of a historical picture. So it's going to be interesting when we get the exact data coming in. It should be in any time now. So I can bring it back to you so you can see how we're moving forward within both of the ESGs, Thurso and Wick. But I think Seb came along. No, Seb and Hannah. I don't think Hannah came along. I think Seb came along to one of the area business meeting. Maybe it's something maybe you want to consider if you want to invite both of the secondary head teachers to your area business meetings when all the data is published. What I'm going to mention as well, sometimes we're a bit of a sync as well between the primary data and the secondary data. And we are addressing that as well. With that, I'm meaning secondary schools maybe outperform Highland national average in certain areas, while primary might sit differently. And again, we're taking much more of a bigger overview, exactly, and moderate against one another as well. But COVID will have an impact of some of the destinations. I know during COVID as well, we didn't have the same access to college courses and so on. So maybe that's reflecting on that too. But as I said, I'm really happy to take it back, the data, when we have it, so we can see the trend now from last session as well.
Do you mind if I just start? Yeah.
Yep.
Continuing to focus on school leavers, and thinking about how, you know, developments in Highland, if I think about a Green Freeport at Nig, you know, more recent good news in regard to industry in Caithness, where, you know, Doomray's presence is going to be expanded. But I just wonder what links, you know, are we building, making specific links, particularly in the Green Freeport, where that's a new development, you know, just so that we can maximise the opportunities for young people in Caithness. Just, if you can, I know that's probably off-piste in a report, but just genuinely interested to understand. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I haven't got the really specific details, so I wouldn't make the schools, you know, do the schools justice to bring it up. So that's why, if you wish, I think it would be really good to get your head teachers back into an area business meeting so they can really focus on that as well. Would you like me to take that forward, to invite him to the next area business meeting with Phil here, and also have an agenda, just as you said there, around the green ports and exactly how is that linked into your positive destinations?
Yes,
Yeah,
that would be
I'll do
that'd be
that.
great. I'm sure Phil will be noting that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments, members? No, I think it's really important that we do see these figures. You know,
Yeah.
the education is a priority, and it's good to see these figures. Some of them are doing quite well. You know, so it is good. So, I just invite the members to note the comments and everything on that, on the two reports, well presented reports. Yes. So, thanks very much. Yes, thanks again.
Thank you.
We'll
I'll see you
catch
soon
up
again.
with
Have a
you
good day.
later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anika.
Right, folks. We move on now to item number 10. I'm proposing maybe a wee comfort break after this one, if you're in agreement with that. This one shouldn't take too long, so I'll hand over to Phil there.
Thank you, members. So the report provides an update on the place-based investment fund projects that were ongoing in the current financial year. That includes the Mall and Janet Street, Victoria Walk, Thurso, and Wick Town Centre improvements, including Riverside area, the work around Wick Town Hall, and the ongoing work carried out by the Criminal Justice Unpaid Work team. Members are just asked to note progress with the projects, but also to homologate the transfer of 1,556 underspend from the bus shelters project, just to carry on supporting the Criminal Justice Unpaid Work team with the Wick Town Centre regeneration. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil, for that. Has any members any comments or questions for Phil on that? I think they certainly have started the work up at Ormley, and it's going well. So it's really good to see work taking place. Jan?
I can't even find it now. I was just going to ask about, the resurfacing pathways at the riverside. I think you were going to find out about that, and the coach parking bays. I know the coach parking is parking along, but they're not actual bays marked out for them. I did check that, but the pathway along the river is still pretty rough in places. I was just wondering, I think you were going to check that for me. It was at 6.4, but I'm not seeing it here now. 6.3.
So sorry, what was your question?
It was about the coach parking bays along at the riverside. I mean, the buses are parking along there, but they're not actually bays marked out for them, or the resurfacing at the pathways at the riverside. I don't know whether that was done. I seen it in an earlier report, but I'm not seeing it up here. It was at 6.4 in the earlier report. I think this report only goes up to 6.3. Yeah, I can bring that up at a later meeting.
Yeah, if that's okay.
That is okay. Yeah, I don't
okay,
see
Phil.
this. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Carl.
Fine.
Just making a point here. I think the biggest thing for me was when I read the report, it's a time involved for us as councillors. If you notice, the funding for Janet Street was allocated, well, it says in the report, I think it's at 2021, but certainly before the beginning of this term. But it just highlights, sometimes when we make decisions as councillors, we then hand that over and a process begins, where there needs to be all the normal process that takes place with civil engineering. But it highlights for me the fact that how important our agenda is. If we don't have an agenda and we're not following projects, things will just pass us by in a 5-year terms. That was the biggest point that I took away from reading this report. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Carl. Anybody else? No. Okay. well, obviously we're seeing a bit of progress, although it's a wee bit slow right enough. Maybe as Carl was saying there has been progress, and you can actually see something happening now. We've also got to approve the repurposing of the £1,556 underspend to support Wick Town Centre regeneration projects. So are you happy enough to with that?
Yeah.
Agreed, Chair.
Okay,
Agreed.
right, members, I think we'll just take a 10-minute break if that's okay, and we'll
Yep.
come back. What's the time just now? Just we'll come back at midday. Okay, members, we'll move on now to item 11, and I'll hand over to Phil.
Thank you, Chair. This is the Wick Common Good Fund annual report. The report presents the 23-24 annual report, the 24-25 Q3 monitoring, and a budget for 25-26. The annual report shows that the invitation to pay income was slightly lower than expected, and the staff costs were higher. That was principally due to the additional work carried out by the Common Good Officer on the oversale consultation. Other costs which are over budget comprised the invitation to pay car parking costs, which members will recall is taken off or is charged to the Common Good, and that's because there was 2 years, 22-23 and 23-24, which came through in the reporting period. Overall, the fund delivered a surplus of 9,389, and that was largely because the town hall property costs were not applied to the fund. Move on to the Q3 monitoring for the current year. Rent is on target. The assessor's rent is usually paid in Q4, and is apportioned across the year, so some of that's accrued. We've also got additional income expected from an office being let in the town hall to a third sector organisation. Other costs have yet to be applied, and town hall property costs are expected to be applied in the current year. Given the additional rent, the expected year end is a surplus of 1,750. The budget, moving on to the budget, that's detailed in the report, and it aims to deliver a balanced budget with the fund contributing to the town hall property costs. Move on to the common good issues. We need a future strategy to develop income and build reserves so that we can meet the costs and liabilities of the Common Good Fund. We continue to market offices for rent at Wick Town Hall. There are 2 still remaining. The council is developing a partnership with the Royal Borough of Wick Community Council, who are going to create a subgroup as a point of contact and focus for common good matters. Members will be updated with progress on the oversale negotiation in due course. And finally, the Common Good Working Group continues to work on Highland-wide common good policy. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Phil, thanks very much. Any members, any comments or questions for Phil on the Wick Common Good? No. Okay, you're invited to agree the statement of accounts and Q4 monitoring report, and note the position of the Wick Common Good Fund shown at Q3, and also to approve the Wick Common Good Fund annual budget for 25-26. Are you quite happy to go with this? Yeah, I'm not seeing any. Yep, that's fine. Thanks very much for that, fellow members, and we'll move on now to the next one for Thurso. Thanks, Phil.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just let me get my... Right, okay, thank you. So this is Thurso Common Good annual report. The report presents the 23-24 annual report and a proposed 25-26 budget. There's no monitoring because there's been no activity to date in the current financial year. The annual report, that's the first report since Thurso Common Good has been established, and the only activity is the valuation of assets in the annual report. Thurso Caravan Park rent for 23-24 has been agreed and is expected in Q4 of the current financial year. Moving on to the budget presents a surplus of 7,500. And then finally, the outlook. This best represents our understanding at the present time, but work will be ongoing to ensure that all Thurso Common Good income and costs are identified and understood. Like Wick, it will be necessary to develop income streams and build reserves, and the report finally notes the ongoing work of the Common Good working group. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Phil, for that. Any members got any questions or comments regarding the Common Good? Struan?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Phil, for your introduction to the paper. I really welcome the report coming to committee, and I think it's definitely sufficient to, or it's absolutely sufficient to ensure that the officer contributions are acknowledged in getting us to this point. An awful lot of people were adamant that we did have Common Good, and we had to go through the rigmarole of seeing that, and the Common Good officers have been incredibly helpful in getting us to a stage where, you know, we are now going to have standardized reports coming to this area committee, and that's something that certainly is to be welcome. I think it's also important that we acknowledge that this is the first step for us in terms of now looking at you know, how the members can start putting into place a strategy and trying to maximise the common good for the folk of the town, and that will mean that we need to, you know, have a kind of unity and purpose, I think, of this, and you know, try and have a strategy that's not just looking for the next number of months or years, but looking into the future as well, because, you know, this should be seen as an opportunity. I understand, you know, we've seen from the Wick side that, you know, the cost base can also add up as much as your income on the other side, but equally, you know, I do feel that if you look at some of the property that's part of our common good and where there is the potential for revenue generation, you know, that's something that you know, we're obligated on behalf of our constituents to explore. So really appreciate this coming forward, and I think we should mark this as the first step now, really, in the journey of making this work for the people of the town.
Yeah, yes, thanks, Struan. Very, very true. I mean, the Thurso ward is a wee bit behind the Wick ward, but we can also take advantage of that and learn from the way they've dealt with that, and it is important that we do go forward with a strategy. So yeah, no more comments or questions, anyone there? So members are asked to agree the Thurso Common Good Fund statement of accounts and agree Thurso Common Good Fund annual budget for 25-26. Happy to agree that.
Agreed.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much, Phil. I think that's your reports done now. I can move on to item 13, and committee's asked to note that the ward discretionary budget applications were approved for the period to 31 December 24, and the list is there to be seen for the Thurso and North West, and also for the Wick and East Caithness applications that has been approved, so you can note that. No comments on that. Not quite happy with that. Okay, doke. So item 14 is there are circulated for noting minutes of the Caithness Committee held on 11th November 24, which were approved by full council on 12th December 24. Just before we finish off, there's a note on the Caithness Disability Access Panel. I think it's very important that we recognise the work that this panel does. They're made up of people of all ages and abilities who share a passion for the issues faced by disabled people. With the help of the Disability Equality Scotland umbrella body, disabled access panels support their communities to become as accessible as possible, particularly in relation to the built environment, healthcare, employment, education and transport. By raising awareness, they can also help to change attitudes among the general public about the need for inclusive access. The Highland Council has a protocol with disability access panels across the Highlands and consults with them on proposals, etc., for buildings and schools and libraries and all that kind of places. The Caithness Disability Access Panel is an active group who meet approximately once a month to discuss local access issues, disability legislation and general matters relating to disabled access, both in buildings and on public transport. They also highlight examples of both good and poor practice to service providers and may comment on a variety of issues reflecting issues relating to accessibility within Caithness. For example, the standard of specific disabled toilets or the frequency of accessible public houses. They also comply in a Caithness Public Service Access Guide, which aims to list the accessibility status of all local businesses. And they are currently working hard to develop a project to provide disabled access onto a local beach for wheelchair users. I would like to acknowledge on behalf of the committee, and I'd like members to make any comments if they wish, to acknowledge the hard work that the Caithness Disability Access Panel do, and especially their chair, Helen Budge, who is very active in this area. I can open up if anybody else wishes to make any comment or anything on that. No, that's fine. Very important work that they do. And we're almost at the end, but I'd just like to say that before we close, we are looking at moving the area committee back to a face-to-face meeting, with the ability to have officers join online. This would also allow members of the public to be present at these meetings. So we're actively looking into the getting that back to face-to-face as it was prior to COVID. There's a wee couple of technology things we need to get sorted out, but that's the aim, and we'll hopefully get there sometime this year. So members, officers, thanks very much. That's the Caithness committee concluded now. See you later.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.